Hey there guys, the PC guy here with our assistant, the reason we have dust filters, and we are going to be kind of looking at the launch of the Threadripper lineup, the Intel 10980XE or however the hell you say that name, and the whole, well, let's call them shenanigans that Intel is once again pulled out of their marketing department. With that said, our little dust filter bunny is going on the floor. Just wanted to give Snowflake some competition, huh, Steve? And well, let's look at what actually has been going on for the past for the past couple of days. So the Threadripper launch was kind of at a certain point even doubted that it was going to happen because some slides from outdated roadmap were shown that well the Threadripper was not on the roadmap at all, and it turned out that, well, it actually happened, thankfully, because they turned out to be pretty decent pieces. But anyway, they did not really give us a date until a couple months ago, and they have since then announced that they were going to be released on the 25th of November, which was yesterday. Now, just the 1090 ATXE, I give up on that name, from Intel was also nearly ready to release, and Intel has decided, like last minute, the usual suspects, the reviewers, already had their review samples, and they just last minute, a few hours before, they decided to change the hour of the review embargo for the end of the NDA to the day that it was supposed to be, to a few hours before the launch of the Threadripper. Now, this had a very clear intent, and the intent was, well, Linus did a video, started this video on the 10980XE talking about this, and he put it in a very concise way. But basically, the intent is that if you have your product out first, if your review embargo is lifted, but AMD's is not, then the reviewers, when they compare your product and they compare it before AMD's embargo is lifted, they cannot compare your Intel's product with AMD's because they are not allowed to talk about AMD's yet. So AMD will not be featured on the reviews of the new Intel CPU, and it will only be compared against older CPUs because, well, they cannot legally talk about AMD's yet. So, and as you know, as if you follow YouTube and YouTubers, you might know around launch dates, the day one reviews are the ones that get popular, especially the bigger channels. That's the ones that stick around. And whoever would in the future go look for reviews for the 10980XE was going to land on a page from day one, be it Linus or Kyle or Paul or you name them, one of those. You probably land on one of those first, and you will not find any mention of the 3970X or 3960X there in terms of graphs and comparisons because they could not show them yet. So yeah, that is a very clear intent and a very sneaky move on Intel's part on trying to, well, kind of get some advantage that way in terms of publicity and mindshare. And it is quite malicious, I might add, because for a lot of people, and maybe not necessarily tech enthusiasts like us that are watching channels like mine or those channels I mentioned, but for a lot of people, you might not necessarily keep up with all the releases and all the launches and the state of things in the tech industry. And if that's the case, if you were to go look for a processor like this, and not everyone will because it's quite high-end stuff, but if you were, let's say you're, for example, a video editor, you don't necessarily have to know all the ins and outs of the hardware itself. So you might, I mean, a lot of people still have the mindshare that performance automatically means Intel and AMD is a step behind. And we all know that's not the case right now, but a lot of people still have that mindshare. So people would look up Intel HDD processors, they would land on the review page for this particular product, and then they will see not even a mention of AMD's products. That is the sneaky pull that Intel was trying to do, and I am happy to say that at least in most of the videos I saw, they did not quite succeed as well as they hoped, and I'll show you that in a second. In any case, that stunt was not really that amazing either, because even if they cannot be compared to the new Threadrippers, they can definitely be compared to the 3950X, which is already out. It is a mainstream platform and not an HEDT one, and it loses but just barely while being also a lot cheaper. Now, before actually going into the specs, I will just wanted to let you check something. This is the video from Linus, and I've kind of lost it for a second because he did quite a rant um, at the start about the whole, well, publicity stunt, and then he kind of to piss off Intel a little bit. As you can see, he's not allowed to show the Threadripper performance numbers, so it just blurred them out, but actually left them in the graphic. And well, it's quite visible here how much ahead, in this case specifically, it is to the 1080XE, nearly doubling the score there. So that is something that I just wanted to show you guys. But it's actually pretty hilarious how he did that. And well, a channel of that size, you can afford to take risks and piss off Intel by doing that and rant off on them like that because you're too big to be ignored and aside by them by not giving them access or something, because otherwise Intel also loses. And obviously he's not going to get any backlash from AMD for showing the relative numbers in the graphs earlier than he should, because honestly it's massively good publicity for AMD in any case, so why would they bother when it was just a matter of a few hours of difference anyway? It was just a funny thing to see. But now let's actually take a look at the specs and see really what the differences are between this generation and the last in terms of both the Intel CPU and the Threadrippers. And spoiler alert, it's gonna be a very red colored video that I'm gonna be doing because it's quite a landslide. So let's compare first the Intel part from the last three generations of high-performance desktop. So both Intel and AMD's part are not mainstream platforms. They are on the higher end. So they are using, in Intel's case, the X299 socket. On AMD's case, the TRX 40 socket, which is a new socket, and hopefully will be supported for a few generations from here on. And this is Intel's last three generations. So innovation-wise, what do you see here? 14 nanometers, all the processes, 18 cores, 16 threads, 1836, 1836, exactly all the same. Base clocks and turbo clocks, 4 gigahertz up, here it stays the same. Zero point 0.2 gigahertz, zero point 0.2 gigahertz increases. So massively small increases. You can barely even notice anything. Cache stays the same. Supported RAM speed stays the same. Memory channel, everything literally stays the same. Max memory, well, yeah, it doubles, but that's not gonna really bring you all that much. And well, the only thing that really is a draw is the drop in pricing from 1999, well, 2K basically, to 1K, and that is spurred on by AMD. And as you will see, even that will not be enough to, well, get them into the competition really. Now, as you saw in the Linus graphic that I just showed you, it was kind of being beaten by a landslide. It was being beaten by the 3950X in some cases, and I'm not going to rip off his entire video and show you all the stats. I've also seen all other benchmarks from other reviewers. So basically, the bottom line is it loses to the AMD parts in pretty much anything. It almost loses to the 3950X, while this one is a much cheaper processor on a mainstream board. The only thing that it beats AMD is in gaming, and this is not a gaming CPU. This is a productivity CPU for definitely not gaming. If you want gaming, you're gonna go with 9900K or KS, and end of story. It's not worth boasting about gaming on HDD platform really. It's just not. So yeah, that's the only thing they are ahead. And as you will see right now, then even this price will not be enough to save them in terms of well, value. So let's take a look at the AMD Threadrippers, and I didn't actually find a good image with both of them side by side, so I have them like this. And if you just look at the innovation, then let's compare. I have both of them here, but let's compare the 3970X to the 2970. So a bit like for like, and it's the highest end that we have right now to look at. So let's call it that. So we had 24 cores, 48 threads, and we're making a jump to 32 cores, 64 threads on the current generation. So another 8 cores, another 16 threads, compare that to Intel, that for the last 3 generations, no changes at all. So let's look at base and boost clock 3.7, 4.5, almost matching Intel's with superior IPC, mind you. And here, again, quite a massive improvement over last generation. TDP 280, so 30 watts above. But then again, we all know TDP says nothing at all these days, really. Besides, is it any wonder when you have an extra 8 cores that it's going to need a little bit more power? Well, not necessarily, not really. So what other changes? Yeah, it is more expensive than the current iteration, the current generation of it. However, the you saw the graphics, you saw how much ahead it was of the Intel part, basically doubling the score or doubling the speed, depending on which workload you put on it. So you are paying a little bit more for it. You're paying an extra 30%, but you're getting, in some cases, 100% more speed. I'm kind of low, in the ballpark anyway, not really exact numbers, but you are getting a massive improvement for not so much of a relative price difference. So yeah, and this, keep in mind that I'll leave that one for last, but you probably already know anyway. The 3990X is already been announced. No release date yet, as far as I know. No detailed specs. We're expecting it to be 64 cores, 128 threads. Probably going to be pricey, that one, but yeah, definitely going to be something to look out for. And again, I don't think Intel has an answer for that for the TRX platform at this point. So yeah, obviously the channel is way too small to me for me to actually get any samples to work with or to analyze, or and it's also not something that I'm just gonna go and get on my own because A, it's quite expensive, B, I have no personal use for them, so that's not something I would go and try out for myself just to get some benchmarks for you, the few people that actually follow my channel. So I don't have actual graphics to show you guys, but it's just a matter of yeah, getting the news out there because, well, it's news. I do news on my channel, and it's quite important, and it's something we haven't seen for a while because when the Zen 2 launched, we have seen Intel kind of getting some competition, but this is beyond the realm of competition into the realm of complete curb stomping, really. There is, they are being mercilessly beaten, and not even the price cuts are really helping them with this. There was something else I was going to mention, which oh yeah, one of the few little advantages that the Intel parts had over the Threadrippers is that the Threadrippers had some issues like not supporting AVX2. They had some problems with the Infinity Fabric when things were on different core complexes, and both of those issues have been fixed. Now, the Threadripper also now has a uniform memory access as opposed to before, which should help with the things being in two different core complexes as well. And if you are actually using it for gaming, which some enthusiasts might, then you should not really have the issues the previous Threadripper had with stuttering, freezes, just overall a bit subpar performance compared to other parts. So that is all improved, that is all fixed basically. So those few saving graces that Intel had over the Threadripper parts are basically gone. As far as the Intel parts, no, again, no innovation. You have apparently some mitigations for things like zombie load, but then again, there's a new variant of zombie loadout, and we have no idea if that one is also mitigated or not. And those mitigations, in turn, the little 200 megahertz increase that you saw on the clock speeds and boost clocks, that's why it's barely any better than the 9980XE because those couple megahertz that you get there are completely being chugged off by the mitigations, and it's like they're not even there to begin with in the first place. So again, the vulnerabilities are really damaging Intel as well. So yeah, final verdict, while I don't have the actual parts to test, is these are not gaming chips. Most of the people watching this channel might actually be gamers. I expect them to be probably, and only a few people actually have use for chips like this, be it video editors, you know, people that actually have professional uses for these chips and for all those cores and threads, this is not something that you would need in your own home. And if you are in that setting, I would definitely recommend you go with the AMD counterparts, depending on your budget and how much you actually need them, either the 3960 or 70 or the 90 when it does release. Because, I mean, let's face it, if you are a video editor and you need to render a video that takes you 2 days to render. If you can cut that time in half, that means you can make twice as many videos, and potentially twice as many incomes. So the whatever you sunk into the CPU in terms of cost, you're going to get that back in no time. That's just simple math. Whatever other tasks that you do professionally on the CPU, if it Yes, the mic decided to turn off because it's been a while. So whatever task you do on the CPU, if it cuts the time in half, it's extra profit for you anyway, because you'd basically double your income. So it's a no-brainer, and even at the higher price point of the Threadripper, it's still a better buy than the Intel part. Now, if you only have some moderate usage for all those cores and the 3900X is not enough, but you need a little bit more, but not quite the first Threadripper. Then the 3950X fits on a normal AM4 socket, which means cheaper motherboards, and is still cheaper than the Intel part while providing almost as much performance. And by cheaper, I mean around $250 cheaper. So that's quite a sizable difference. Now, I hope that someday I actually have the opportunity to test chips like this, but that's definitely not in the near future. And yeah, I know it wasn't the most informative of videos with actually hands-on experience, but I hope I have given some information to any people out there that might be looking for it. So drop a like or a comment if you have enjoyed this video. That always helps with bringing the video to more people and making it more visible in general. It has been on a live stream format because yeah, I just long day at work, didn't have time to record, edit, and then do it in a normal format that I do with all the nice transitions and all that. So yeah, this is what you got today. This has been Ethic PC Guy. Like I said, if you'd like to help the channel grow, drop the like, subscribe, and help the algorithm pick us up. And well, yeah, check out our other content, and I hope I'll see you guys in the future, hopefully with a bit more resources to work with actual hands-on experience with the things I'm reporting on. I'll see you guys later.